My name is Alara Whitman, and I never thought the words, "she's just a friend," would become the sentence that ended my marriage. What you're about to hear is exactly how it unfolded, and how everything changed after. Tell me where you're watching from, and if this story speaks to you, hit subscribe so you don't miss the rest. I didn't plan to confront anyone that night. I planned to drop off a folder, smile politely, and go home. That was it. One small errand after a long day. I remember gripping the steering wheel too tightly, telling myself to breathe as I pulled into the lot, reminding myself not to be late. Then I saw his car. Not a similar model. Not a coincidence. Noah's car. Parked crooked, like he'd rushed. Engine cold. Lights off. The kind of parking job you make when you don't expect to be noticed. It was outside Brielle's house. I sat there longer than I should have. Long enough to check the street sign twice, as if maybe I'd turned down the wrong block. Long enough to think of every excuse I'd heard over the last year. Long enough for the truth to settle into my chest like something heavy and sharp. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I picked up my phone and texted him. "Are you still at work?" 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Reappeared. Running late. "Be home soon." I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. When I finally got out of the car, my legs felt unsteady, like they belonged to someone else. Brielle's front door was open. Voices drifted out. Laughter, casual, familiar. The sound of people who weren't worried about being caught. I stepped inside. There were people there, neighbors, friends, someone's kids playing on the floor with snacks scattered everywhere. This wasn't a secret meeting. This was a gathering, a normal, friendly social evening. And there was my husband, sitting on Brielle's couch, too close. His hand resting on her knee like it had been there before. The room didn't go silent right away. It took a second. Someone noticed my face. Someone else followed their gaze. Conversation stalled, then stopped altogether. Noah stood up so fast he knocked his drink over. "Alara," he said, like my name could fix this. Brielle froze. She didn't move her leg away from him. That was the detail that did it for me. Not the car, not the lie. That single moment where she chose not to move. I looked around the room. People I had hosted. People who knew my child. People who had eaten at my table. They were watching me now, waiting to see what kind of woman I would be in this moment. "Are you serious?" I asked, my voice calm enough to surprise even me. Noah stepped toward me. "This isn't what it looks like." I laughed. One short breath of a sound. "Then explain why your car is parked outside my best friend's house at 9:30 at night, while you're telling me you're at work." Brielle finally stood. "Alara, please." I held up a hand. "Don't." The room felt too small. Too many eyes. Someone's phone buzzed on the counter. A child asked a question that no one answered. Noah reached for my arm. I stepped back. "Don't touch me," I said. My voice carried. It landed. He stopped. "I was going to tell you," he said. "I just needed time." I looked at him then. Really looked. The familiar face, the practiced concern. The man who had looked me in the eye for months and told me I was imagining things. "How long?" I asked. He hesitated. That hesitation was louder than any confession. I turned to Brielle. "How long?" Her eyes filled. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." That was her answer. I nodded slowly. "Of course it wasn't." Someone cleared their throat. Someone else muttered my name, like they wanted to help me off a ledge I wasn't standing on. I felt the humiliation then, not like a wave, like a heat, crawling up my neck, across my face. I was being watched, measured, reduced to a moment. I took my wedding ring off. The motion was steady, intentional. I placed it on the coffee table between them. "You can keep it," I said to Noah. "You already treated it like it didn't matter." He reached for it. I stepped back again. "This is a misunderstanding," he said, his voice tight. "We can talk at home." I shook my head. There is no home. The words felt final the moment I said them. I looked around the room one last time. "I hope all of you remember this," I said quietly. "Because I will." Then I turned and walked out. My hands were shaking when I reached the car, but I didn't stop. I didn't sit and cry. I drove. I didn't know where at first. Just away. Away from the lies. Away from the people who had just watched my marriage collapse like it was entertainment. At a red light, my phone started buzzing. Noah. Again. And again. I silenced it. I pulled over a few blocks later, finally letting myself breathe. My reflection stared back at me from the darkened window. Eyes wide, jaw set, unfamiliar and focused. That was when it shifted. The shock didn't disappear, but something else moved into place beneath it. Clarity, direction, the quiet understanding that what had just happened wasn't the end of my life. It was the end of his control over it. I started the engine again, already making a list in my head. Not of apologies, not of explanations, of next steps. He had humiliated me in public. I would make sure he understood what that cost. When people talk about betrayal, they act like it comes out of nowhere. Like one day everything is fine, and the next day your life explodes. That's not how it happens. It happens quietly. In small moments you explain away, because believing in your marriage feels safer than questioning it. Noah and I met in our mid-20s. We weren't reckless. We weren't dramatic. We built something steady. He was dependable, thoughtful, the kind of man other people trusted immediately. I trusted him because consistency can look a lot like honesty when you want it to. We married young enough to grow together, or so I thought. I shifted my career early on, choosing roles that gave me flexibility so one of us could always be present. When our son was born, I became the default parent without ever saying it out loud. School forms, doctor visits, nightmares at 2 a.m. Noah helped, but I carried the rhythm of our life. Financially, we told ourselves we were equals. But the truth lived in the details. The down payment on our house came from my savings. Money I'd set aside long before we married. I never asked for recognition. I believed partnership meant you didn't keep score. Brielle entered our lives a few years later. She was easy, funny, always available. She bonded with Noah over shared schedules and mutual favors. At first, I was grateful. It felt like support. It felt like community. Then the small things started. Noah became protective of his phone. Not obvious, just enough that I noticed. He worked later but talked less about what he was doing. If I asked, he smiled and said I was tired, stressed, reading too much into things. And I believed him, because doubting your husband feels like admitting you chose wrong. Brielle dismissed my concerns before I could even fully form them. She laughed when I mentioned how often Noah was around, told me I was lucky to have a husband who helped, told me not to sabotage a good thing with anxiety. I wanted to believe her. The night I saw his car outside her house wasn't the first red flag. It was the last one. The one I could no longer rationalize. The confirmation came the next morning. My sister called before I did. Her voice was careful, like she was walking on glass. She told me she'd seen messages, screenshots someone had sent her late the night before, conversations that didn't need interpretation, dates, plans, familiar language that didn't belong to me anymore. I thanked her and hung up. Then I went into my son's room and watched him sleep. His face was calm, unbothered by the fact that the foundation under his life had cracked. That was the moment the stakes became real. This wasn't about humiliation anymore. It wasn't even about heartbreak. It was about protecting what I had built and what he relied on without appreciating. My finances, my child's stability, my future. Noah didn't just betray me emotionally. He did it while standing on ground I helped secure, while benefiting from choices I made for our family. And the worst part? He thought I would absorb it quietly, that I would process it privately, that I would forgive it eventually, because I always had. He didn't understand that the woman who ignored the warning signs was gone. What remained was someone who knew exactly what she stood to lose. And what he did too. I didn't give myself time to fall apart. I knew if I did, I'd stay there too long. So I moved. The morning after I walked out of Brielle's house, I woke up before my alarm, already fully alert. The house was quiet in that uneasy way it gets when something has shifted, but no one has named it yet. Noah hadn't come home. His side of the bed was untouched, the sheets smooth like a question he wasn't ready to answer. I made coffee. I packed my son's lunch. I did everything normally, because normal kept me upright. Once he was on the bus, I closed the front door and stood in the hallway for a full minute, letting the silence settle. Then I opened my laptop. I didn't search for closure. I searched for counsel. By noon, I had a consultation scheduled with a family attorney recommended by a colleague who didn't ask questions. I opened a new checking account in my own name and transferred the portion of funds that were directly traceable to my premarital savings. I wasn't hiding money. I was reclaiming it. I changed passwords. Not out of spite, but because access is power, and I was done pretending I didn't need any. Noah started calling around 10. I didn't answer. By lunchtime, the messages shifted from confusion to irritation. We need to talk. You're blowing this out of proportion. Think about our son. That last one almost worked. Almost. Instead, I forwarded the messages to a new folder labeled Documentation. That afternoon, I met with the attorney. She listened without interrupting, nodding when I explained the finances, the house, the child. She didn't flinch when I told her where the down payment came from. She didn't ask me how I felt. She asked me what I wanted. I want stability, I said, and control over what I built. She told me what was possible, what needed to happen immediately, what not to say yet. I left her office lighter, not because things were resolved, but because they were finally defined. When I got home, Noah was there. He stood in the kitchen like a guest, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning my face like he was looking for the version of me that would soften. You didn't answer, he said. I wasn't available, I replied. He exhaled sharply. This is getting serious. I looked at him. It already was. You just didn't think it would be for you. He tried a different approach then. Quieter, careful. He said he made a mistake. He said he was confused. He said it didn't mean anything. I listened, not because I believed him, but because watching him scramble confirmed something important. He had no idea what I was doing. I'll stay at my brother's for a few days, he said. Give you space. I nodded. That would be best. He hesitated. You're not thinking about ending things, are you? I met his eyes. I'm thinking about protecting my son. That was the moment his expression changed. Not guilt, fear. That night, after he left, I made a list. Not of revenge fantasies, of logistics, school schedules, accounts, documents. People who needed to know and people who didn't. I emailed the realtor we'd once joked about using someday and asked about valuations. I gathered paperwork and placed it in a folder I kept with me. I slept for 4 hours. That was enough. By morning, Noah was already behind me. He just didn't know it yet. He thought this was a conversation he could control. I had already turned it into a process. The first thing Noah noticed wasn't emotional distance. It was silence. Not the dramatic kind. No shouting, no tears. But the absence of access. He called less because he was getting less back. Short replies. Delays. No reassurance. The familiar rhythm he relied on was gone, and he didn't know how to fill the space. By the end of the week, the practical consequences began to surface. He called me from a grocery store aisle, irritation bleeding through his voice. My card was declined. I know, I said, keeping my tone neutral. You moved money. I separated money, I corrected. The portion that was mine before we married. You can't just do that. I can, I said. And I did. He went quiet, then angry, then quiet again. That same afternoon, Brielle texted me for the first time since the night everything exploded. "I never meant to hurt you." I stared at the message for a long time before deleting it without responding. Her apology wasn't for me. It was for herself. The fallout reached her faster than she expected. Word travels quickly in small, polite circles. People stopped inviting her to things. Conversations cooled. Smiles tightened. She noticed the shift immediately, started asking mutual friends what was wrong, why things felt different. No one answered her directly. They didn't need to. My sister told me later that Brielle had shown up unannounced at her door, crying, asking if there was any way to fix the narrative. That phrase alone told me everything I needed to know. Noah, meanwhile, was losing footing in ways he didn't anticipate. The attorney sent the first formal notice that week. Not aggressive, just clear. It outlined boundaries, temporary arrangements, financial disclosures, the kind of letter that doesn't threaten, it informs. He called me after he received it. "Are you seriously lawyering up?" he asked. "I already did," I replied. "You didn't even give us a chance to talk this through." I paused. "We talked for months. You just weren't honest." That night, he tried a softer approach. He dropped off our son and lingered in the driveway, voice low, shoulders slumped. "I'm scared," he said. "I didn't think this would go so far." I looked at him through the open car door. Neither did I. At work, people started asking me quiet questions. Not gossip, concern. Someone had seen something. Someone had heard. I didn't explain. I didn't deny. I let the truth exist without defending it. The most unexpected shift came from Noah's family. His sister called me one evening, her voice strained. She didn't defend him. She didn't excuse anything. She just said, "I'm so sorry," and meant it. 2 days later, Noah showed up unannounced, frustration spilling over. "My family's acting weird," he said. "They're not taking my calls." I nodded. "People don't like being lied to. You didn't have to involve them." "I didn't," I said. "You did." By the end of the week, he was unraveling. He left a voicemail at midnight, rambling, apologetic, then angry. He accused me of turning everyone against him. He said I was punishing him too hard for a mistake. I saved the message, added it to the folder. The consequences weren't explosive. They were cumulative. Small doors closing, access disappearing, support thinning out. And then, finally, desperation. On Sunday morning, my phone rang. I almost didn't answer. "I need to see you," Noah said, his voice tight. "Please." "For what?" I asked. "To explain. To fix this." I looked out the window at the quiet street, my son's bike leaning against the fence. "We're past fixing," I said. "You're just starting to feel it." He exhaled sharply, like the truth had finally reached him. "Just tell me what you want," he said. I ended the call without answering, because the first consequences weren't about what I wanted. They were about showing him what he had already lost. The second confrontation wasn't accidental. It was scheduled. Noah didn't know that when he texted me, asking if we could clear the air in person. He suggested a cafe near the courthouse, neutral territory, public enough to keep things calm. He thought public meant safe. I agreed. When I arrived, he was already there, seated by the window, rehearsed concern etched into his face. Brielle sat across from him. That part didn't surprise me. He still believed proximity equaled leverage, that if we were all in the same space, things could be smoothed over. The cafe was busy, lunch crowd, lawyers in pressed suits, clerks, a few familiar faces from our neighborhood. Conversations buzzed around us as I set my bag down and took the empty chair across from them. Brielle wouldn't meet my eyes. Noah started talking immediately. "We thought it would be better if we were all here," he said, "for transparency." I smiled. It was small, controlled. "That's considerate." He relaxed a fraction. "Mistake. I'm not here to reconcile," I said, clearly enough for the table beside us to go quiet. "I'm here to finalize boundaries." Brielle looked up then, panic flashing across her face. "Ilara, please." I held up my hand. "This isn't a conversation." I reached into my bag and placed a folder on the table. Not thick, not dramatic, just enough to matter. "Noah," I said, keeping my voice steady. "You told people I was unstable, that I imagined things, that this," I gestured briefly between them, "was harmless." His jaw tightened. "This isn't the place." "It is," I said. "You chose public." A woman at the next table glanced over. Someone behind me stopped stirring their drink. "I've already filed," I continued. "Temporary custody, financial separation. Everything communicated will now go through counsel." Brielle's hands trembled. "You don't have to do this like this." I turned to her fully for the first time. "You don't get to decide how I respond to what you helped destroy." She swallowed hard. "He told me you knew." The lie landed flat. Even Noah looked at her then. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't lean forward. I just said, "He told me you were just a friend." That was it. That was the line. It traveled. I could feel it ripple outward, the way silence spreads when something true is said too plainly to argue with. Noah opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time since I'd known him, he had nothing ready. I stood. "This is the last time we meet like this," I said. "Any further contact will be documented." I picked up my bag, then paused. "Noah," I added, my voice calm and even, "you didn't lose me when you cheated. You lost me when you watched me be humiliated and still chose yourself." Brielle's chair scraped back as she stood abruptly. "I can't do this," she said, eyes darting around the room. "I didn't sign up for this." She grabbed her purse and walked out, leaving Noah sitting alone at the table. No one rushed to him. No one intervened. People watched. Not openly, but enough. I turned to leave. Behind me, Noah said my name. Once. Softly. I didn't turn around. By the time I stepped back onto the sidewalk, my phone was already buzzing. Messages. Missed calls. The story was moving faster than he could control now. The second humiliation wasn't loud. It was worse. It was public, undeniable, and witnessed by people who would remember exactly who stood up and who was left behind. Noah didn't disappear after the cafe. He regrouped. At first, it was subtle. Carefully worded messages sent to mutual friends. Casual explanations offered before anyone asked. He framed it as a misunderstanding that spiraled. A marriage under stress. Two people who lost their way. He never used the word affair. He didn't have to. He trusted implication to do the work for him. Within days, I started hearing it. Filtered through people who meant well. "He's having a hard time. He says you shut him out. He's scared he'll lose his son." The story was being shaped gently, compassionately, with Noah at the center as a man who made a mistake and was being punished too harshly for it. It almost worked. Then he pushed too far. A colleague forwarded me a post Noah had shared late one night. No names, no accusations. Just a long paragraph about regret, mental health, and how sometimes the loudest accusations come from the deepest misunderstandings. He ended it with a line about choosing peace over bitterness. People responded immediately. Supportive comments, heart emojis, messages praising his maturity. I stared at the screen longer than I wanted to admit. That was the moment I stopped reacting and started correcting. I didn't argue online. I didn't comment. I didn't post my own version of events. I let the post sit for exactly 24 hours, long enough to spread, long enough to settle into the narrative he wanted. Then I forwarded a set of screenshots to my attorney. Text messages, dates, times, location tags. Conversations that lined up cleanly with nights he told me he was working late or helping a friend. Nothing edited, nothing emotional, just evidence. She advised me on what could be shared and where. Not publicly, not recklessly, strategically. The first drop wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. A mutual friend, Someone Noah trusted received a message from me asking for advice. I included one screenshot. Just one. No commentary. No framing. The response came 10 minutes later. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea." By evening, Noah's phone was ringing nonstop. He called me shortly after, his voice tight. "Are you showing people private messages?" "I'm showing people the truth," I said. "You're trying to destroy me." I paused. "Noah, I'm not trying. I'm responding." He hung up. The second wave hit harder. Someone leaked the cafe story. Not exaggerated. Not dramatized. Just the facts. 3 people, a folder, one woman walking out, another following shortly after. Noah left alone. By the end of the week, the comments on his post shifted. Support turned into confusion. Confusion turned into silence. Silence turned into quiet unfollows. He tried again, this time directly. He emailed my parents, my sister, even one of my coworkers. Long messages explaining his remorse, insisting he loved his family, asking for understanding. He CC'd me on all of them. That was his mistake. My attorney responded once, professionally, informing him that continued contact outside formal channels would be documented. After that, I let the receipts speak without my voice attached. A timeline circulated. Someone else made it. I didn't correct it. I didn't deny it. It matched the facts too well to dispute. The phrase "just a friend" started showing up in conversations, not attached to my name, just as shorthand. A knowing reference. A warning. Brielle vanished from everything. She deleted posts, stopped showing up to events, turned her phone off for days at a time. Someone told me she'd tried to explain herself to a few people, but the story never landed. It collapsed under its own weight. Noah's employer asked him to work remotely, for a while. His family stopped defending him altogether. His sister sent me a message I didn't expect. "We're done making excuses for him." The PR war ended not with a final blow, but with exhaustion. His attempts to control the narrative required energy he no longer had. Every move he made was met with evidence he couldn't outrun. One night, close to midnight, he left me a voicemail. "I don't recognize my life anymore," he said. "Everyone thinks I'm a villain." I saved the message. The next morning, I woke up to something new. Peace. Not relief. Not happiness. Just the calm that comes when the truth stops needing defense. Noah had tried to shape the story. He forgot one thing. Stories fall apart when the receipts don't lie. The legal part didn't arrive with drama. It arrived with paperwork. Once filings were official, everything Noah thought he still controlled slipped out of reach one line at a time. Requests for disclosure, account histories, property valuations, dates and signatures that didn't care how sorry he felt. He underestimated how exposed he was. The house became the first fracture point. He believed it was ours in the way people say things are shared when they've never looked too closely at the numbers. The down payment trail told a different story. So did the mortgage records. My attorney didn't argue. She presented facts. When the temporary orders came through, Noah lost exclusive access to the home. I didn't celebrate. I just enforced it. He moved out with 2 suitcases and a box of paperwork he didn't fully understand yet. Money followed. Joint accounts were reviewed, spending patterns analyzed, transfers questioned. He hadn't been reckless, but he had been careless. Dinners, gifts, weekend trips disguised as errands. It added up in ways that mattered legally, not morally. He accused me of punishing him financially. "I'm protecting myself," I said, repeating the same sentence until it stopped feeling defensive and started feeling factual. Custody was next. I didn't fight publicly. I didn't smear him as a father. I documented routines, schedules, who showed up consistently, who knew teachers' names, who handled medical forms. Judges don't respond to outrage, they respond to patterns. Temporary custody was granted to me within weeks. Noah cried when he read the order, not in front of me. I heard about it later. His family felt the shift more slowly. At first, they tried neutrality. Invitations continued, but with tension. Conversations grew careful. Then someone asked the wrong question at the wrong time, and the truth surfaced in pieces they couldn't reassemble. His brother stopped returning calls. His parents asked him directly what happened. He gave a version that didn't survive follow-up questions. When they reached out to me, it wasn't for clarification. It was for confirmation. I gave it calmly, without commentary. A week later, his father withdrew financial support Noah had quietly relied on since college, not out of anger, out of disappointment. That was the word that broke him. Brielle collapsed faster. Her separation from Noah didn't spare her. It exposed her. Mutual friends closed ranks. Parents from school events stopped speaking to her. Someone reported her for a policy violation at work. I wasn't involved. I didn't need to be. Her attempts to reach me stopped when she realized silence wasn't punishment. It was dismissal. Noah, meanwhile, tried to hold ground where he could. He pushed back legally, questioned valuations, delayed disclosures, claimed emotional distress. Each attempt cost him more, financially, reputationally, and emotionally. The court didn't care. Deadlines passed, extensions expired, consequences followed. By the time final numbers came through, he was liquidating things he never thought he'd have to touch. Retirement contributions. A vehicle he loved more than he admitted. The image he had built for himself cracked under the weight of accountability. One night, he showed up at the house unannounced. I didn't let him in. He stood on the porch, voice raw. I don't know where to go. I looked at him through the door. You should call your lawyer. That was when it hit him. This wasn't a phase. This wasn't a negotiation. This was a dismantling. The final blow didn't come from the court. It came from his mother. She called me quietly one afternoon. Told me she loved her grandson. Told me she was ashamed of what her son had done. Told me she wouldn't be helping him financially anymore. Not because she hated him, but because she refused to enable him. I raised him better than this, she said. When Noah found out, he spiraled. His last message to me wasn't angry. It was empty. I have nothing left. I didn't respond, because what he meant was, he had nothing left that he could take from me. And that was the point. The final meeting wasn't ordered by the court. It was requested by Noah. He emailed my attorney first. Polite, careful. He asked if there was any chance I would agree to speak with him once. Just once, before everything was finalized. No negotiation. No paperwork. Just a conversation. My attorney forwarded it to me with a single line. Your choice. I thought about it longer than I expected. Not because I missed him. Not because I doubted myself. But because unfinished things have a way of lingering, and I didn't want any part of him living rent-free in my future. I agreed, on my terms. We met in a small conference room at the law office, neutral, bright, no privacy illusions, no emotional staging. I arrived early and sat with my hands folded, breathing steadily, feeling strangely calm. When Noah walked in, I barely recognized him. He looked smaller, thinner. Not physically weak, but hollowed out, like someone who had been carrying something too heavy for too long and finally dropped it, only to realize it was holding him upright. He didn't sit right away. He just stood there, staring at me like he was trying to remember who I used to be. You look different, he said. So do you, I replied. He sat. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It was earned. I didn't think it would end like this, he said finally. I nodded. I know. I thought we'd talk, he continued. I thought you'd get angry, maybe take time. But eventually I'd forgive you, I finished. He looked down. Yes. I leaned back slightly. That was never something you earned. He swallowed hard. I loved you. I didn't react. I didn't challenge it. I just said, love isn't what you did when you lied to my face and watched me question my own reality. He rubbed his hands together nervously. I made mistakes. You made choices. I said. Mistakes are accidental. He flinched. I lost everything, he said quietly. My family, my reputation, my home. I'm barely holding things together. I studied him for a moment. Not with satisfaction, with clarity. You didn't lose those things because I exposed you, I said. You lost them because they no longer had a reason to protect you. He looked up at me then, eyes wet. I don't even know who I am anymore. That's not my responsibility, I said calmly. He leaned forward. I need to know. Was any of it real? Did any of it matter to you? I held his gaze. Our marriage mattered to me. That's why I fought for it long after you stopped respecting it. He nodded slowly, like the answer hurt, but confirmed something he already knew. I'm sorry, he said, for humiliating you, for lying, for making you feel small. I let the apology sit. Then I said, I don't need your apology to move on. He blinked. Then why are we here? I took a breath. Because you asked, and because this is the last time you will. His shoulders sagged. Is there really no chance? No way back? I didn't hesitate. No, I said. And not because I'm angry. Because I see you clearly now. He stared at me, searching for something. Anger, softness, regret. He found none. I spent years shrinking my instincts to keep our peace, I continued. I explained away your distance. I trusted you over myself. That version of me is gone. He whispered my name. I am not the woman you could betray and then negotiate with, I said. You don't get access to me anymore. Not emotionally, not personally, not in any way that matters. Tears finally fell. Silent, uncontained. I don't know how to live with this, he said. I stood. You'll figure it out, I said evenly. Just like I did. He looked up at me, desperate now. Please, just tell me one thing. I paused, my hand resting on the back of the chair. What? I asked. How did you move on so fast? I looked at him then, really looked. I didn't, I said. I let go. I picked up my bag. From now on, I added, any communication goes through counsel. About our son only. Nothing else. He nodded numbly. As I reached the door, I stopped once more. You didn't break me, I said. You revealed me. Then I walked out. I didn't cry in the hallway. I didn't pause in the parking lot. I drove home with the windows down, breathing in the quiet certainty of something finished. Not a marriage. A chapter. And for the first time since the night I walked out of that house, I knew, without doubt, that he would never have power over me again. 2 years passed without announcement. No dramatic milestones, no public declarations of reinvention. Just quiet, steady change, the kind that happens when you stop performing survival and start living again. The house feels different now. Lighter. Not because the memories vanished, but because they no longer dominate the air. I rearranged furniture the first month after everything finalized, not out of symbolism, but necessity. I needed space that reflected who lived there now, not who once tried to keep things together at any cost. My son adjusted faster than I expected. Children don't need perfect families. They need honest ones. He stopped asking when his father would come home and started asking questions about school, friends, what we were making for dinner. The stability I worried about losing turned out to be something I could rebuild. Stronger, quieter, more real. We created routines that belonged to us alone. Morning walks, Friday dinners. A rhythm that didn't rely on waiting for someone else to show up. Professionally, I stopped playing small. I accepted a role I would have declined before. More responsibility, more visibility. I stopped apologizing for ambition. The confidence didn't arrive all at once. It grew, piece by piece, as I realized I no longer had to negotiate my worth inside my own life. I slept better, not every night, but enough. The kind of rest that comes when your mind isn't bracing for disappointment. Friends shifted. Some stayed. Some faded. A few surprised me. I learned who valued me for my steadiness, and who only felt comfortable when I carried more than my share. Losing the second group wasn't a loss. It was a correction. As for Noah, I didn't track him. I didn't need to. Occasionally, information reached me anyway. He moved twice in 1 year, changed jobs, tried to rebuild connections that didn't reopen. He became quieter in spaces where he used to command attention. Smaller, in ways that had nothing to do with finances and everything to do with credibility. When we crossed paths at a school event months later, there was no confrontation, just distance. He nodded. I nodded back. Polite. Final. He looked at me like someone observing a door he no longer had a key to. I didn't feel triumph. I felt nothing at all. And that was freedom. The anger dissolved slowly, not because he deserved forgiveness, but because carrying it no longer served me. I didn't rewrite the past to soften it. I integrated it. Betrayal didn't define me. It clarified me. I stopped questioning my instincts. That was the real transformation. I learned to trust the voice I once silenced to keep peace. I learned that loyalty to others means nothing if it requires betrayal of yourself. I learned that walking away isn't weakness when staying would cost you everything that matters. Sometimes people ask how I survived it all. They expect a dramatic answer, something inspirational. I tell them the truth. I didn't survive it. I outgrew it. The woman who begged for reassurance, who explained away red flags, who believed love meant endurance. She did her best with what she knew. I don't judge her. I thank her. She carried me far enough to become someone else, someone stronger, quieter, unavailable to manipulation. Betrayal didn't destroy my life. It ended a version of it that was built on compromise disguised as love. Now, when I look ahead, I don't feel urgency. I don't feel fear of being alone. I feel grounded, rooted, capable of choosing rather than settling. I don't measure healing by happiness anymore. I measure it by peace. And peace, it turns out, is the most powerful thing I've ever reclaimed. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever faced betrayal, silence, or the strength it takes to walk away, tap the hype button to let me know you felt it too. I'd love to hear your thoughts or your own experience in the comments. This space is for honest conversations. And if you want more stories like this, don't forget to hit subscribe and the like button so you don't miss what's coming next. Your support truly means more than you know.